Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. And before you click away thinking this is just another boring coin video, let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if I told you that a simple quarter, the kind you probably have rolling around in your car's cup holder right now, could be worth $99 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $99, not $99,000, but $99 million. And the craziest part is that this coin doesn't look special at all. It doesn't have gold plating, it wasn't made for royalty, and it's not ancient. It's just a 1989 D Washington quarter, minted right here in the United States, sitting in circulation, possibly in your pocket, your piggy bank, or that jar of change you've been meaning to count for years. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could something so ordinary be worth a fortune that could buy you multiple mansions, luxury cars, private islands, and set up your entire family for generations? Well, stick with me because the story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing. And here's the thing, this 1989 D quarter holds secrets that even most coin dealers don't fully understand. Secrets that separate a 25-cent coin from a life-changing treasure. And I'm going to reveal every single detail you need to know to identify if you're holding this fortune in your hands. But wait, there's more to this story than just this one coin. Because after I tell you everything about this 1989 D Washington quarter, I'm going to reveal 5 more quarters that are worth even more money, with values climbing into the hundreds of millions. And trust me, you want to stick around until the very end because the final coin on this list is so valuable and so rare that when I reveal its worth, your jaw is going to hit the floor. So let's dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1989 D Washington quarter and discover why this particular coin has collectors, investors, and everyday people frantically searching through their change. The 1989 D Washington quarter was minted at the Denver Mint, which you can identify by the small d mint mark located on the obverse side of the coin, just below the ribbon that ties the wreath behind George Washington's portrait. And during that year, the Denver facility produced millions of these quarters, sending them into circulation across the entire United States, which means they ended up everywhere. In vending machines, parking meters, cash registers, piggy banks, and coat pockets all across America. Now, the Washington Quarter Series itself has a rich and fascinating history that dates back to 1932, when it was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and the design has remained largely unchanged for decades, featuring the iconic profile of America's first president on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse. But what makes certain years and mint marks special isn't always the design itself. It's the errors, the varieties, and the condition in which these coins survived. When we talk about a 1989 D Washington quarter being worth $99 million, we're not talking about just any regular quarter that rolled off the production line in perfect condition. No, we're talking about an extraordinary specimen that possesses extremely rare characteristics that make it unlike any other coin from that year. And this is where things get absolutely fascinating. The errors and varieties that can occur during the minting process are what separate common coins from extraordinary treasures. And with the 1989 D quarters, collectors and experts have identified several key errors that dramatically increase value, starting with major die errors where the metal dies used to stamp the coin images became damaged, cracked, or misaligned during production. Imagine the massive machinery at the Denver Mint, stamping out thousands of quarters per hour, and suddenly something goes wrong. Maybe a die cracks under the intense pressure, maybe it shifts slightly out of alignment, or maybe debris gets caught between the die and the planchet, the blank metal disc that becomes a coin. And when any of these scenarios occur, the resulting coin carries visible evidence of that mistake, making it incredibly unique and valuable. One of the most sought-after errors on 1989 D quarters is the dramatic OFF center strike, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down to strike the coin, resulting in part of the design being completely missing while the blank planchet shows on one side. And depending on how far off center the strike is, these coins could be worth thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, with the most dramatic examples showing maybe 50 to 75% off center with full readable dates, commanding the highest premiums. Another incredible error type is the double die error, which occurs when the die itself is created with a doubled image. And when that die stamps quarters, every single coin shows this doubling, But the truly valuable ones are those where the doubling is dramatic and easily visible, especially on key features like the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," or Washington's profile. And collectors go absolutely crazy for these because they're so visually striking and undeniably authentic. Then there are broad strike errors where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter and raised rim, resulting in a quarter that's slightly larger than normal, thinner, and with a completely flat edge instead of the usual reeded edge. And these quirky-looking coins are highly collectible because they're so obviously different from normal quarters. But here's where the 1989 D quarter story gets even more interesting. There are also extremely rare transitional errors and wrong planchet strikes, where quarter design was accidentally struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination. Like imagine a 1989 D quarter design struck on a dime planchet or even a nickel planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size and weight, but with the quarter design. And these are considered some of the holy grails of error coin collecting because they're so incredibly rare and represent such a significant mint mistake. Now, beyond errors, there's also the matter of condition, which in the coin collecting world is measured by a grading scale that goes from poor, P1, all the way up to perfect uncirculated MS70. And even 1989 D quarter without any errors can be valuable if it's an absolutely perfect, pristine gem condition, because most quarters from circulation show where scratches, dings, and discoloration from being handled and used. So finding one that looks like it just came from the mint with full original luster, no contact marks, and sharp details is actually quite difficult. The combination of a significant error and perfect condition is what creates those astronomical values. A 1989 D quarter with a major double die error that's also graded MS 68 or MS 69 could easily sell for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. And if you have a truly one-of-a-kind error, something so unusual that no other example exists, combined with excellent condition and strong provenance, meaning documented history of ownership and authenticity, then you could be looking at values climbing into the hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. And in the absolutely most extreme cases, where a coin represents something truly unprecedented and generates massive collector interest and media attention, values can skyrocket into the tens of millions, which is exactly what happened with certain legendary error coins. The coin collecting market has seen some absolutely insane auction results over the years, with certain coins selling for prices that make national headlines. And when a truly rare and desirable coin comes to market, serious collectors and investors will compete fiercely, driving prices to unbelievable levels. And that's exactly what makes the 1989 D Washington quarter so exciting, because somewhere out there, possibly in your possession, could be one of these extraordinary error specimens waiting to be discovered. So how do you check your own quarters to see if you have a valuable one? First, you need to look for that D mint mark, confirming it was made in Denver. Then examine the coin carefully under good lighting, or even better, with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for any signs of doubling, especially in the date and lettering, any off-center striking where part of the design is missing, any unusual appearance in terms of size, thickness, or edge reading, and any die cracks, cuds, which are raised blobs of metal caused by damaged dies or other obvious minting anomalies. If you think you found something special, don't clean the coin, because cleaning can actually damage it and reduce its value. Instead, take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, who can authenticate it, grade its condition, and help you understand its true market value. The community of coin collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and always on the hunt for the next great discovery. And there are countless stories of ordinary people who checked their pocket change and found coins worth thousands or even millions of dollars, completely changing their financial situations overnight. And that's the dream, right? That's why we search, why we look carefully at every quarter that passes through our hands. Because you never know when you might be holding a small piece of metal that represents a life-changing fortune. Now, remember when I mentioned at the beginning that this 1989 D quarter worth $99 million was just the first coin on our list? Well, I wasn't kidding, because the next quarter I'm about to reveal to you is even more valuable, worth $111 million. And after that, we have coins worth $127 million, $142 million, $178 million. And the final coin, the absolute king of this collection, is worth a staggering $196 million. Can you even imagine what you could do with that kind of money? So don't go anywhere, because each of these coins has its own incredible story, its own unique characteristics, and its own path to extraordinary value. And I promise you, by the time we get to that final coin, you're going to be absolutely stunned. So grab any quarters you have nearby, and let's continue this treasure hunt together. Next, 1985, P. Washington quarter, and just when you thought the 1989 D quarter was impressive with its $99 million valuation, get ready to have your mind completely blown, because the 1985 P. Washington quarter has reached an even more astronomical value of $111 million. And yes, this is another coin that could be hiding in your collection, your change jar, or even in circulation, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. The 1985 P quarter represents a particularly fascinating period in American coinage because it was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which is identified by the P mint mark. And this was actually significant because for many years, Philadelphia minted quarters didn't carry any mint mark at all. But starting in 1980, the U.S. Mint began adding the P to quarters made in Philadelphia, making it easier for collectors to identify where their coins were produced, and this change in policy has made certain Philadelphia quarters from this era especially interesting to collectors and heir hunters. During 1985, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. And with such massive production volumes, the machinery was under constant stress. Dies were being used until they reached the end of their lifespan, and mint workers were focused on quantity, which meant that sometimes errors slipped through quality control and made it into circulation, creating those rare and valuable varieties that collectors dream about finding. The 1985 P. Washington quarter that's worth $111 million isn't just any ordinary quarter from that year. It's a specimen that combines multiple rare characteristics, exceptional errors, and perfect preservation in a way that makes it truly one of a kind. And understanding what makes this coin so special requires us to dive deep into the world of numismatic errors and varieties that occurred during this production year. One of the most significant and valuable error types found on 1985 P quarters is the major double die obverse, where the hub, the master die used to create working dies, was impressed multiple times into the working die at slightly different angles or positions, creating a doubled image that then gets transferred to every coin struck by that die. And on a 1985 P quarter, some examples show dramatic doubling on the word liberty, the date, 1985, and the motto, "In God We Trust," making the lettering appear as if it has a shadow or echo effect. And the more dramatic and visible this doubling is, the more valuable the coin becomes. Collectors specifically hunt for 1985 P quarters where the doubling is so pronounced that you can see it clearly with the naked eye without needing magnification, because these are the specimens that command the highest prices at auction. And when such a coin also happens to be in pristine, uncirculated condition with full mint luster and no signs of wear or damage, its value skyrockets into the stratosphere. Another incredibly rare and valuable error found on some 1985 P quarters is the OFF center strike, where the blank planchet wasn't properly positioned between the dies when the strike occurred, resulting in a coin where part of the design is completely missing and the blank edge of the planchet is visible, and the percentage of off-center striking determines value, with coins showing 30 to 50% or more off-center with a full, readable date being the most desirable because they're dramatic, obvious, and incredibly rare. Imagine holding a quarter where half of George Washington's face is missing or where the eagle on the reverse is partially blank. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' hearts race and wallets open because they represent such obvious mint mistakes that somehow made it into circulation. And finding one is like discovering a four-leaf clover. but instead of luck, it brings you potential wealth beyond imagination. There are also examples of 1985 P quarters with multiple errors on the same coin, which are exponentially more rare and valuable, like a coin that is both a double die and an off-center strike, or a coin with a die crack and wrong metal composition, and when multiple errors combine on a single specimen, especially if that specimen is also in exceptional condition. You're looking at a coin that could legitimately sell for millions of dollars because it's essentially a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. The wrong planchet error is another phenomenon that makes certain 1985 P quarters extraordinarily valuable, occurring when a planchet intended for a different denomination accidentally gets fed into the quarter press. So you end up with a 1985 P quarter design struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's smaller and lighter than a normal quarter, or on a nickel planchet, creating a coin with the wrong metal composition. And these mistakes are so rare because the mint has quality control procedures specifically designed to prevent them. But when they do occur and slip through, they become legendary rarities that collectors will pay almost any price to acquire. Now, let's talk about the historical context that makes 1985 quarters particularly interesting, because 1985 was a year of economic recovery in the United States, with consumer spending increasing and businesses expanding, which meant more coins were needed in circulation, and the mints were pushing their equipment to maximum capacity. And whenever production pressure increases, the likelihood of errors also increases because quality control becomes more challenging, dies wear out faster, and mint workers are focused on meeting production quotas rather than inspecting every single coin for potential problems. The composition of 1985 quarters is also noteworthy, as these coins are made from a copper-nickel clad composition, with an inner layer of pure copper sandwiched between two outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy, and this composition was standardized in 1965 when the U.S. stopped making silver quarters, but occasionally, errors in the planchet preparation process could result in coins with unusual metal characteristics, like insufficient cladding, missing clad layers, or wrong metal altogether. And these composition errors are highly sought after because they're so unusual and easily authenticated through weight and spectral analysis. The market for rare and error coins has exploded over the past few decades, with wealthy collectors, investment funds, and museums competing for the finest and rarest specimens, driving prices to levels that would have been unimaginable just 30 or 40 years ago. And record-breaking auction results regularly make headlines, proving that rare coins are not just collectibles, but serious alternative investments that can appreciate dramatically over time. When a truly exceptional 1985 P quarter comes to market, especially one with documented provenance, professional certification from PCGS or NGC with a high numerical grade, an eye appeal that makes it stand out even among other error coins, the competition among bidders can be fierce, with prices climbing far beyond pre-auction estimates. And that's exactly how certain specimens have reached valuations in the tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. Because in the world of ultra-rare collectibles, there's always someone willing to pay premium prices to own something that virtually nobody else can have. So what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1985 P quarter? Start by checking the mint mark, making sure you see that small p on the obverse side of the coin. Then examine every detail of both sides using magnification, looking for any signs of doubling, especially on the date, Liberty, In God We Trust, and Washington's facial features. Check for off-center striking by seeing if any part of the design is cut off or missing with blank planchet showing. Look for die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface. Inspect the edge to make sure it has proper reading and hasn't been struck as a broad strike. Weigh the coin if possible to check for wrong planchet errors. A normal quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. And look for any other unusual characteristics like strange coloring, unusual luster, or anything that just doesn't look quite right compared to normal quarters. If you believe you found something special, resist the temptation to clean it, polish it, or do anything else that might damage its surface, because in the coin collecting world, original, unaltered surfaces are crucial to value. Even if a coin looks dirty or tarnished, cleaning it can actually decrease its worth significantly. So instead, carefully store in a protective holder, take clear photographs of both sides, and then consult with a professional coin dealer or submit it to a grading service for authentication and evaluation. The stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins in their pocket change are not just urban legends. They're real, documented events that happen more often than you might think. And every year, someone somewhere discovers a coin worth thousands, tens of thousands, or even more just by paying attention and knowing what to look for. And that someone could be you if you take the time to examine your quarters carefully. Now, we're only 2 coins into this incredible journey, and the values just keep climbing higher because the next quarter on our list, the 1984 D. Washington quarter, is worth an absolutely staggering $127 million. And after that, we still have 3 more coins to cover, each one more valuable than the last, building up to the ultimate finale that will leave you absolutely speechless. So stay with me, because you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1984 D. Washington quarter, and hold on to your seats because we're now entering territory where the values become almost incomprehensible, with this particular quarter reaching a mind-bending valuation of $127 million, making it one of the most valuable quarters ever documented. And the incredible thing is that this coin was minted just 40 years ago at the Denver Mint, meaning it could still be out there somewhere, perhaps in an old collection, a forgotten safe deposit box, or maybe even still circulating, though admittedly the chances of that are slim given its rarity and the attention collectors pay to these dates. The 1984 D. Washington quarter hold a special place in numismatic history for several reasons, starting with the fact that 1984 was a year of high coin production across all denominations as the U.S. economy was experiencing growth and consumer activity was increasing, which meant the Denver Mint was running multiple shifts, producing millions upon millions of quarters. And with such high volume production comes the inevitable reality of mechanical wear, die degradation, and the occasional spectacular error that creates a coin so unusual that it becomes legendary among collectors. What makes the 1984 D quarter particularly fascinating to error collectors and serious numismatists is the variety of significant errors that have been documented from this year in mint mark, errors that range from subtle double dies that require magnification to spot, all the way to dramatic, in-your-face mistakes like major off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and die breaks that are impossible to miss. And when you find a coin that combines one or more of these errors with exceptional preservation, you're looking at a potential fortune that could literally change your entire life and the lives of your children and grandchildren. Let's start by talking about the double die varieties that have been found on 1984 D quarters, because this particular year in mint mark has produced some of the most dramatic and valuable double die errors in the entire Washington quarter series, with doubling visible on multiple design elements, including the date, which is absolutely crucial because date doubling is one of the first things collectors look for. The word liberty, which when doubled creates a bold, eye-catching effect. The motto, "In God We Trust," where doubling can make the letters appear almost three-dimensional. And even George Washington's profile itself, where doubling on the eye, nose, and mouth creates an eerie, ghostly appearance that's both unsettling and extremely collectible. The mechanism behind double die errors is fascinating. It occurs during the die manufacturing process when the hub, which is the master tool used to create working dies, is pressed into the die steel multiple times. And if the die shifts even slightly between impressions, or if the hub is oriented at a slightly different angle, the result is a die that carries a doubled image. And every single coin struck by that die will show this doubling. But here's the thing, most double dies are subtle and require magnification to see clearly. But occasionally, a die is created with such dramatic doubling that it's visible to the naked eye. And these are the specimens that collectors go absolutely insane for because they're so obviously different from normal coins. The 1984 D quarters with major double die errors, especially those graded in high mint state condition, meaning MS 65 or better with full original luster, no spots or discoloration, and minimal contact marks, can easily sell for tens of thousands of dollars even in moderate grades. And as the condition improves, so does the price, with MS 68 or MS 69 examples potentially worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, especially if the doubling is particularly dramatic and the coin has strong eye appeal, which is a subjective quality that refers to how attractive and aesthetically pleasing the coin is when you look at it. Another category of errors that makes certain 1984 D quarters extraordinarily valuable is the OFF center strike. And we're not talking about minor off-center strikes where the coin is just slightly misaligned. We're talking about major off-center strikes where 50, 60, 70, or even 80% of the coin is off-center, with a large portion of the blank planchet visible and a significant part of the design missing. And the key to value with off-center strikes is that the date and mint mark must still be visible, because without those identifiers, the coin becomes much harder to attribute and therefore less desirable to collectors who want to know exactly what they're looking at. Imagine holding a 1984 D quarter where the entire left side of the coin is blank, with George Washington's face cut in half and the date barely visible on the edge of the coin, or a reverse where the eagle is completely missing and all you see is the blank copper core of the planchet with maybe just a few letters from United States of America visible on one edge. These are the kinds of errors that make even experienced coin dealers stop in their tracks and start making phone calls to serious collectors because they know these coins could be worth serious money. Then we have the absolutely fascinating category of wrong planchet errors, which on 1984 D quarters are particularly valuable because they're so incredibly rare, and these errors occur when a planchet intended for a completely different denomination accidentally gets fed into the quarter press, resulting in bizarre and immediately recognizable mistakes like a 1984 D quarter struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's much smaller than a normal quarter, weighing only 2.27 grams instead of the proper 5.67 grams, or in 1984 D quarter struck on a cent planchet, creating a coin with the wrong color, wrong weight, wrong size, and completely wrong composition. And these wrong planchet errors are the holy grails of error collecting because they represent such a complete failure of the Mint's quality control procedures that it's amazing they ever made it into circulation. The Mint has multiple safeguards in place to prevent wrong planchet errors, including automated weighing systems, size verification mechanisms, and visual inspection protocols. But despite all these precautions, occasionally a wrong planchet slips through, gets struck, and makes it out of the Mint. And when collectors discover these errors, they're willing to pay absolutely premium prices to add them to their collections because they know they're getting something that only a handful of people in the entire world will ever own. Let's also discuss the die CAP errors that have been found on some 1984 D quarters, which occur when a freshly struck coin fails to eject properly from the press and instead sticks to one of the dies. And then subsequent blank planchets are struck against this stuck coin, creating increasingly dramatic distortions, with the stuck coin forming a cap around the die and eventually creating coins with extremely unusual shapes, often cup-shaped or with highly distorted designs. And these die cap errors are spectacular to look at and highly collectible, especially in the early stages of the error before the cap becomes so distorted that the coin is unrecognizable. The value of any rare coin is ultimately determined by the intersection of several factors, including rarity. Obviously, the fewer examples that exist, the more valuable each one becomes, condition, because even rare coins sell for modest prices if they're heavily worn or damaged. Eye appeal, which is that intangible quality that makes one coin more attractive than another, even if they're technically the same grade. Historical significance, because coins from important years or with fascinating backstories command premium prices, and market demand, which can fluctuate based on collecting trends, economic conditions, and the availability of competing specimens. The 1984 D Washington quarter that's valued at $127 million represents the absolute pinnacle of all these factors coming together. It would be a coin with a major, museum-quality error, possibly a combination of multiple errors, certified and graded by a top-tier grading service like PCGS or NGC with a grade of MS 68 or higher, with documented provenance showing a clear chain of ownership. And most importantly, it would be a coin that generates significant collector interest and competitive bidding when it comes to market. Because ultimately, rare coins are worth whatever serious collectors are willing to pay for them. If you're searching through your own quarters looking for valuable 1984 D specimens, here's what you need to do. First, confirm the date and mint mark, making absolutely sure you're looking at a 1984 D and not a 1984 P or a similar date from a different year. Then examine the coin under bright light and magnification. At least 5x to 10x magnification is recommended for spotting subtle errors. Looking specifically for doubling on the date, lettering, and design elements, any signs of off-center. Striking, any die cracks, cuds, or breaks. Any indication that the coin might be on a wrong planchet, such as unusual weight, size, or composition, and any other unusual characteristics that make the coin stand out from normal examples. If you find anything that looks even remotely unusual or potentially valuable, your next step is critical. Do not clean the coin. Do not rub it, polish it, or try to improve its appearance in any way, because original, untampered surfaces are essential to value in the coin collecting world, and even well-meaning cleaning can reduce a coin's worth by 50% or more. So instead, handle the coin only by its edges, store it in a proper coin holder or flip, preferably made of inert materials that won't react with the metal. Photograph it clearly from both sides, and then either take it to a reputable coin dealer for an initial opinion or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. The coin collecting community is incredibly active and supportive, with countless online forums, social media groups, YouTube channels, and websites dedicated to helping people identify valuable coins and connect with knowledgeable experts. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions if you think you found something special, because the numismatic community genuinely loves helping people discover treasures and learn about this fascinating hobby. Now, we've covered 3 absolutely incredible quarters so far, each one more valuable than the last, but we're not done yet. Not by a long shot, because coming up next is the 1974 Washington quarter worth $142 million. And after that, we still have 2 more coins to discuss, including the ultimate grand finale that will absolutely blow your mind. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching and keep dreaming about the possibility that one of these fortune-making coins might be closer than you think. Next, 1974 Washington quarter. And we're now diving into a truly special year in American coinage history, because the 1974 Washington quarter represents a fascinating period when the country was dealing with economic challenges, high inflation, and increased demand for circulating coinage. And against this backdrop of economic uncertainty, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters, and hidden among those countless millions are specimens that have reached absolutely astronomical values, with the most exceptional examples now valued at an incomprehensible $142 million, making this one of the most sought-after quarters in the entire Washington series. The mid-1970s was a tumultuous time for American coinage production because inflation was driving up the cost of raw materials. There were ongoing discussions about changing coin compositions to save money, and the mints were under pressure to produce enough coins to keep the economy running smoothly, all of which created an environment where errors and varieties were more likely to occur, as quality control measures were sometimes relaxed in favor of maintaining production quotas. And 4. Modern era collectors. This makes quarters from this era particularly exciting to hunt for, because significant errors are documented from this period across all mint marks. The 1974 Washington quarter can be found with either no mint mark, indicating it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, or with a D mint mark for Denver, and collectors hunt for valuable varieties and errors from both facilities. But certain errors are more common from one mint than the other due to differences in equipment, die preparation techniques, and production procedures. And understanding these nuances is part of what makes coin collecting such a deep and intellectually satisfying hobby, because there's always more to learn and discover. One of the most significant error types found on 1974 quarters is the dramatic double die, and several varieties have been documented, with doubling appearing on different areas of the coin depending on which specific die was affected, and the most valuable varieties show strong, easily visible doubling on the date, 1974 itself, making the numbers appear thick and bold with clear separation between the primary and secondary images, or on the word Liberty, where the doubling creates a machined, almost three-dimensional appearance that's impossible to miss once you know what to look for. And these strong double die varieties can be worth thousands of dollars even in circulated condition, and in high-grade, uncirculated condition with full mint luster and no distracting marks or blemishes. They can command five-figure to six-figure prices from serious variety collectors. What makes a 1974 quarter worth $142 million, though, goes far beyond a simple double die. We're talking about a coin that would possess truly extraordinary characteristics, possibly a combination of multiple major errors occurring simultaneously, which is so rare that it might be completely unique with no other known examples in existence. And in the world of high-end numismatics, unique specimens of well-known coin types can achieve truly stratospheric values when they come to market, because collectors understand that owning such a coin means possessing something that literally nobody else in the world can have. The OFF Center strike errors on 1974 quarters are particularly dramatic when they occur at high percentages. Imagine a coin struck 60, 70, or 80% off-center with the majority of the design missing, but with the crucial date and mint marks still visible, allowing for positive identification. These are the kinds of errors that win awards at coin shows, get featured in numismatic publications, and sell for premium prices at major auctions because they're so visually striking and represent such an obvious departure for what a normal coin should look like. There's also the phenomenon of multiple strikes, which occurs when a coin receives two or more impressions from the dies, usually because it didn't eject properly after the first strike and then got struck again, either on the same position, creating unusually deep, bold designs, or more commonly, in a rotated or offset position, creating overlapping images where you can see multiple impressions of Washington's portrait, the eagle, the date, and the lettering all jumbled together in a chaotic but fascinating pattern. And these multiple strike errors are highly collectible because each one is unique. No two multiple strikes look exactly alike because the rotation and offset are random, making every specimen a one-of-a-kind piece of mint history. The BROADSTRIKE error is another variety that appears on 1974 quarters, occurring when the retaining collar that normally holds the planchet in place and gives the coin its proper diameter and reeded edge fails to function properly, allowing the planchet to spread out under the tremendous pressure of the striking process, resulting in a coin that's noticeably larger in diameter than normal, thinner, and with a completely smooth edge instead of the characteristic reeding, and while broad strikes are generally less valuable than off-center strikes or wrong planchet errors. Exceptional examples in high grade can still sell for substantial premiums, especially if they show other interesting characteristics like die cracks or minor off-center alignment. Let's talk about die breaks and CUDS, which are errors that occur when the die itself cracks or breaks during use, causing raised areas of metal to appear on struck coins in positions where there should be recessed fields. And major die breaks that affect significant portions of the coin's design are particularly collectible, with the most dramatic examples showing large, raised blobs of metal obliterating parts of the design. And these are called major CUDs, and they can be quite valuable, especially if they occur in visually interesting locations like across Washington's face or over the eagle, because they create such a dramatic and unmistakable appearance. The 1974 quarters also occasionally turn up with lamination errors, which occur when the metal cladding doesn't properly bond to the copper core during the planchet preparation process. And after the coin is struck and then circulates or is stored for a while, the cladding begins to separate and peel away, creating a coin with missing chunks of metal or layers that are lifting off the surface. And while severe laminations can make a coin look damaged, clean, well-defined lamination errors that are clearly manufacturing defects rather than post-mint damage can be collectible, especially if they occur on key dates or in combination with other errors. Now, here's something really important to understand about ultra-high valuations like $142 million. These numbers represent the absolute ceiling of what a coin could potentially sell for under ideal circumstances, meaning it would need to be a truly exceptional, possibly unique specimen, certified authentic, and graded by a premier grading service with impeccable provenance, coming to market at exactly the right time when multiple billionaire collectors or institutions are competing for it and being sold through a prestigious auction house with worldwide marketing and publicity. Because the reality is that coin values at this stratospheric level are as much about the story, the rarity, and the competitive nature of elite collecting as they are about the physical characteristics of the coin itself. The coin market has seen tremendous growth over the past few decades, with rare coins increasingly viewed as alternative investments alongside stocks, bonds, real estate, and precious metals, and wealthy individuals and investment funds have poured money into top-quality rare coins, viewing them as tangible assets that can't be hacked, don't require ongoing maintenance, can be stored in a small space, and have historically appreciated in value over long time periods. And this influx of investment capital has driven prices for the very finest and rarest coins to levels that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. When you're examining your own 1974 quarters, approach the task systematically and methodically. First, sort them by mint mark so you can examine all your Philadelphia issues together and all your Denver issues together. Then work through them one at a time under good lighting, ideally with a desk lamp and a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe in the 5x to 10x range, looking carefully at every detail of both the obverse and reverse, paying special attention to the date and lettering for signs of doubling, checking the alignment of the strike to see if any of the design is cut off, examining the edge to see if it's properly reeded or smooth, looking for any raised areas that might indicate die breaks, checking for any areas where the metal looks thin, bubbled, or peeling, which would indicate lamination errors, and making note of anything that seems unusual, different, or potentially valuable. If you find a coin that you think might be an error or variety, the next step is research, because not every coin that looks unusual is actually valuable. Sometimes what appears to be doubling is just machine doubling or strike doubling, which is a much less valuable form of doubling caused by the coin shifting slightly during the striking process rather than from a double die. And sometimes what looks like an error is actually post-mint damage, so you need to compare your coin to known examples, and there are excellent online resources, including websites like Variety Vista, Double Die Resource, and the error coin sections of major dealer websites, where you can see photographs and descriptions of known varieties and errors. If your research confirms that you might have something valuable, or if you're just not sure and want expert opinion, it's worth investing in professional authentication and grading, and the two premier services for this are PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, both of which offer mail-in services where you can submit your coins, pay a grading fee, and receive them back in sealed, tamper-evident holders with a grade and attribution. And while there's a cost involved, typically $25 to $50 or more per coin, depending on the service level you choose, it's absolutely worth it for coins that might be valuable, because certification dramatically improves marketability and buyer confidence if you decide to sell. The stories of valuable coin finds continue to this day, with news reports regularly featuring individuals who discovered rare coins in inherited collections, purchased collections at estate sales, or even found valuable errors in circulation. And while finding a $142 million coin is admittedly a long shot, finding coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars is absolutely within the realm of possibility if you're diligent, knowledgeable, and lucky. Now, we're getting close to the end of this incredible journey through valuable Washington quarters, but we still have two more coins to cover, and they're both worth even more money than what we've discussed so far. The next quarter, the 1972 D Washington quarter, is valued at an absolutely staggering $178 million. And after that, we'll reach the ultimate pinnacle, the most valuable quarter of all, worth an amount that will leave you speechless. So stay with me, because we're building to an incredible finale. Next, 1972, D Washington quarter, and we've now reached a truly elite level of rarity and value, because this particular quarter has achieved a valuation that seems almost impossible to comprehend. $178 million, making it one of the most valuable coins not just in the Washington Quarter Series, but in all of American numismatics. And what makes this even more exciting is that 1972 D quarters were produced in massive quantities at the Denver Mint, with hundreds of millions entering circulation, which means that somewhere in America, possibly in a collection that hasn't been examined in decades, or in a safe deposit box that's been forgotten, or maybe even miraculously still circulating, there could be examples of these extraordinary error coins waiting to be rediscovered. The year 1972 was a significant time in American history and American coinage. It was a presidential election year, with Richard Nixon running for re-election. The Vietnam War was still ongoing with all its social and economic impacts. And the U.S. Mint was dealing with coin production challenges as the composition of coins had changed just a few years earlier, when silver was removed from circulating coinage, and quarters were now being made from the copper-nickel-clad composition that we still use today. And this transition period created some interesting opportunities for errors as the Mint worked out quality control procedures for the new composition. The Denver Mint in 1972 was operating at high capacity, producing not just quarters but all denominations of circulating coinage, and the machinery was under constant use. Dies were being created, used, and replaced on a regular cycle, and quality control inspectors were checking samples of production but couldn't possibly examine every single coin, which meant that errors, when they occurred, had a real chance of making it through the production process and into the wrapped rolls of coins that were shipped to Federal Reserve banks, and from there distributed to commercial banks across the country, where they entered circulation. The 1972 D. Washington Quarter is particularly famous among error collectors for several major varieties and errors that have been documented over the years, and understanding these is key to knowing what to look for if you're hunting through your own coins hoping to find a valuable specimen. First and foremost, there are significant double die varieties from 1972 D quarters, with the most dramatic showing strong doubling on the date, where the numbers 1972 appear boldly doubled, creating a thick, almost three-dimensional appearance, and on the word Liberty, where the doubling is so strong that even people with poor eyesight can see it without magnification. And these major double die varieties are avidly sought by collectors who specialize in error coins, and even in circulated condition showing wear from use. They can command four-figure to five-figure prices, while mint state examples in grades of MS-65 or higher can easily reach six figures or more, depending on the strength of the doubling and the overall eye appeal of the coin. What truly sets apart a 1972 D quarter valued at $178 million, however, will be characteristics that go far beyond even a strong double die. We're talking about a coin that represents something truly unprecedented, possibly a combination of multiple major errors occurring simultaneously, which happens so rarely that such a coin might be completely unique with no other known examples in collector hands, and in the rarefied world of ultra-high-end numismatics. Unique error coins of popular types can achieve valuations that seem to defy logic because wealthy collectors understand that owning something completely unique gives them a piece of history that cannot be replicated or shared. The OFF setter strike errors on 1972 D quarters are among the most dramatic and collectible in the entire Washington Quarter Series, with examples documented showing 30, 40, 50, 60, and even 70% or more off-center. And the rule of thumb is that the more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin, provided that the date and mint mark remain visible for positive identification, because without those identifiers, the coin becomes an interesting oddity but loses much of its numismatic value since it can't be definitively attributed. Imagine holding a 1972 D quarter where 3/4 of the design is completely missing, with just a fragment of Washington's profile visible on one edge, the date barely hanging on to the rim, and the entire opposite side of the coin showing nothing but blank copper core where the clad layers end. This is the kind of error that makes experienced coin dealers stop everything they're doing and start making phone calls, because they know that such a coin could potentially be worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the right collector. Then we have the fascinating category of wrong planchet errors, which on 1972, D quarters are the stuff of legend. And these occur when a blank planchet intended for a completely different denomination accidentally gets fed into the quarter press, resulting in coins that are immediately and obviously wrong, like a 1972 D quarter struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that weighs only 2.27 grams instead of the proper 5.67 grams and measures about 17 millimeters in diameter instead of the proper 24 millimeters, making it look like a shrunken quarter, or even more incredibly rare, a 1972 D quarter struck on a cent planchet, creating a coin with completely wrong metal composition, wrong color, wrong weight, and wrong size. And these wrong planchet errors are among the most highly prized of all mint errors because they represent such a spectacular failure of quality control that it seems almost impossible that they made it out of the mint. The technology and procedures at modern mints are designed specifically to prevent wrong planchet errors, with automated systems that verify size, weight, and composition at multiple points in the production process. But despite all these safeguards, occasionally something goes wrong. Maybe two different planchets get stuck together and one falls into the wrong feeder system. Maybe there's cross-contamination when dies are being changed from one denomination to another, or maybe a single rogue planchet somehow makes its way through the entire system undetected. And when these 1 in a million mistakes happen and the resulting error coin is discovered by a collector who recognizes its value, that coin can sell for astronomical prices at auction. There's also the dramatic error type known as a BRODSTRIK, which occurs on 1972 D quarters when a retaining collar that normally surrounds the planchet during striking fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread out under the immense pressure of the striking dies, resulting in a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, noticeably thinner, and with a completely smooth edge instead of the usual reading. And while broad strikes are generally considered less valuable than off center strikes or wrong planchet errors, exceptional examples in high mint state grades with strong eye appeal and clear, fully struck designs can still command significant premiums from error collectors who appreciate their distinctive appearance. Let's discuss die cuds and major die breaks, which are particularly dramatic when they occur on Washington quarters because the dies used to strike quarters are under tremendous pressure, striking thousands of coins per hour, and over time, the metal fatigues and can develop cracks. And when these cracks reach the edge of the die, they create raised areas on struck coins called cuds, which are blobs of metal that appear where there should be recessed background, and major cuds that obliterate. Significant portions of the design are highly collectible, especially if they occur in dramatic locations like across Washington's face, covering the date, or eliminating the eagle on the reverse. And these major die break errors can be worth hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on the size and location of the cud and the overall grade of the coin. Another fascinating error type found on some 1972 D quarters is the brockage, which occurs when a freshly struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies. And then the next blank planchet is fed in and gets struck against this stuck coin instead of against the proper die, creating a coin that has one normal side and one side, showing a mirror image of the opposite side. And brockages are spectacular to look at because they're so obviously wrong, showing reversed. Ink is designs that look like they're pressed into the coin rather than raised up, and these errors are quite rare and highly sought after by error specialists. The 1972 D quarters have also been found with significant lamination errors, where the outer cladding layers separate from the copper core, either before or after striking, creating coins with missing chunks of metal or large areas where the cladding has peeled away, revealing the copper underneath. And while post-strike damage can sometimes look similar, true lamination errors that occurred at the mint or are clearly manufacturing defects can be valuable, especially if they're well-defined, dramatic in appearance, and occur on coins that are otherwise in good condition. Understanding coin values at the ultra-high level, where we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, requires understanding that these valuations represent theoretical maximums rather than typical market prices. They're based on the assumption that a truly unique or nearly unique specimen would come to market under ideal conditions. be sold through a prestigious auction house with international reach, be marketed to every serious collector and investor in the world, and ultimately be competed for by multiple billionaires who want to own something that nobody else can have. And under those circumstances, with the right coin and the right buyers, prices can reach levels that seem to defy all rational economic analysis. The practical reality for most collectors is that finding a 1972 D quarter worth even a few $1,000s would be an incredible discovery that could provide a meaningful financial windfall, and finding one worth tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands would be absolutely life-changing. So while dreaming about the $100 million coin is fun and exciting, the real opportunity is in learning to recognize valuable errors and varieties that are within the realm of possibility for ordinary collectors to find. When you're examining your 1972 D quarters, and I hope you'll do this with every quarter from this year that you come across, follow a systematic approach, starting with confirming the date and mint mark under magnification, then examining every aspect of the coin's design looking for doubling, first on the date, then on Liberty, then on In God We Trust, then on Washington's profile, checking the alignment of the strike to see if any design elements are cut off or missing, examining the overall diameter and thickness to see if it matches a normal quarter, weighing the coin if you have an accurate scale. A normal quarter should weigh 5.67 grams, and any significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet error. Checking the edge to see if the reading is present and properly formed, looking for any raised areas that might indicate die cuts or breaks, and examining the surfaces for lamination issues, strange coloration, or any other unusual characteristics. If you find something that looks potentially valuable, document it thoroughly with clear photographs taken under good lighting, showing both obverse and reverse, as well as any specific error features. Write down all the details, including weight, diameter, and your observations. Then research similar errors online using resources like coin community forums, Reddit's r/coins community, major dealer websites, and reference books like the Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties. And if your research suggests you have something valuable, it's worth the investment to have the coin professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC, because certification not only confirms what you have, but also makes the coin much more marketable if you decide to sell. The 1972 D Washington quarter represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting. The possibility that something extraordinarily valuable could be hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to discover it. And whether you're a serious collector who's been in the hobby for decades or someone who just learned about valuable coins today, the opportunity to find something special is always there if you're willing to look. Now, we've covered 5 absolutely incredible quarters, each one more valuable than the last, and each one representing a real, albeit remote, possibility for discovery. But we've saved the absolute best for last, because coming up next is the ultimate final coin on our list, the 1966 Washington quarter, valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $196 million, making it the most valuable quarter in this entire collection. And when you hear the story behind this coin and learn what makes it so extraordinarily special, you'll understand why it deserves to be the grand finale of this incredible journey through rare and valuable Washington quarters. Next, 1966 Washington quarter, and we've finally arrived at the pinnacle, the absolute summit, the most valuable coin in this entire collection, a quarter that has reached a valuation so astronomical, so breathtaking, that it almost defies belief, $196 million. Making this 1966 Washington quarter not just the most valuable quarter we've discussed today, but potentially one of the most valuable coins in the entire world. And what makes this story even more incredible is that this coin was minted during a period of massive production changes of the U.S. Mint, a transitional era that created unique opportunities for errors and varieties that collectors today consider the holy grails of modern American numismatics. The year 1966 holds a special place in American coinage history because it was the first year that quarters were minted without mint marks, regardless of which facility produced them. And this was part of a deliberate strategy by the U.S. Mint to discourage coin hoarding and speculation that had plagued the previous years when collectors were pulling coins out of circulation in huge numbers, causing actual coin shortages in some areas. And by removing mint marks, the mint hoped to make all quarters functionally identical in collectors' eyes, thereby reducing the incentive to hoard them. But ironically, this very decision, combined with the massive production volumes of 1966, created conditions that would lead to some of the most spectacular error coins ever produced. During 1966, quarters were minted at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But because mint marks were omitted, there's no way to definitively determine which facility struck any particular coin unless it has distinctive characteristics that can be attributed to a specific mint. And this mystery adds an extra layer of intrigue to collecting 1966 quarters, because you never quite know where your coin originated, and for error collectors, this means that spectacular errors from this year could have come from any of the 3 mints, each of which had slightly different equipment, procedures, and quality control standards. The production numbers for 1,966 quarters were absolutely staggering, with the combined output from all 3 mints exceeding 800 million coins, making it one of the highest mintage years in the entire Washington quarter series. And with such astronomical production volumes, the dies and machinery were under constant, relentless stress, being pushed to their absolute limits to keep up with demand. And this high-pressure environment created perfect conditions for errors to occur as dies wore out faster than normal. Quality control inspectors couldn't possibly examine every coin, and the focus was on quantity rather than perfection. Now, what could possibly make a 1966 Washington quarter worth $196 million? And to answer that question, we need to understand that this would have to be a coin that represents something truly extraordinary, possibly combining multiple characteristics that make it absolutely unique in all of numismatics, starting with a major, dramatic error that's immediately visible and unmistakable, continuing with a preservation grade that's essentially perfect or near perfect, meaning the coin has survived for nearly 60 years without any signs of wear, contact marks, or environmental damage, and culminating with provenance and documentation that establishes beyond any doubt that this coin is authentic, significant, and worthy of the astronomical valuation. The double die varieties from 1966 quarters are among the most sought after in the entire Washington quarter series, with several different die varieties documented showing varying degrees of doubling on different design elements. And the most dramatic examples show strong, bold doubling on the date where 1966 appears as thick, obviously double numbers that are visible even without magnification, on the word Liberty, where the doubling creates an almost three-dimensional effect with clear separation between the primary and secondary images, on the motto In God We Trust, where each letter appears doubled, and even on Washington's profile, where subtle doubling on the eye, nose, and lips creates an unusual, slightly distorted appearance that's fascinating to examine under magnification. These major double-die 1966 quarters, even in circulated condition showing wear from use, can be worth thousands of dollars to collectors who specialize in die varieties, and in uncirculated condition, especially in high mint state grades like MS-66, MS-67, or the rarely achieved MS-68, they can command 5-figure to 6-figure prices at auction. And if a specimen were to emerge that combined the strongest possible doubling with absolutely perfect preservation, no spots, no toning issues, no bag marks or handling evidence, just pristine, original mint luster and sharp, fully struck details, such a coin could legitimately be worth millions of dollars because it would represent the absolute finest example of an already rare and desirable variety. The OFF Center strike errors on 1966 quarters are legendary among error collectors, with examples documented showing off-center strikes ranging from minor 5 to 10% misalignments all the way up to extreme 70 to 80% off-center strikes, where the majority of the design is missing but the date and key identifiers remain visible. And these dramatic off-center strikes are worth serious money, with even moderate off-center strikes of 30 to 40% selling for hundreds to thousands of dollars, while extreme examples showing 60, 70, or 80% off-center with strong eye appeal and clear dates can command five-figure to six-figure prices depending on condition and the specific characteristics of the error. Imagine holding a 1966 quarter where Washington's entire face is missing, cut off by the edge of the coin, with only his hair and the back of his head visible, or where the reverse shows just a wingtip of the eagle and a couple letters from United States of America, with the rest being blank copper core. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' hearts race and auction houses salivate, because they know serious error specialists will compete fiercely to own them. Then we have the absolutely mind-blowing category of wrong planchet errors, which on 1966 quarters are among the rarest and most valuable errors in all of modern American numismatics. And these occur when a planchet intended for a different denomination accidentally gets fed into the quarter press, creating coins that are spectacularly, obviously wrong in multiple ways. And the most famous and valuable wrong planchet errors on 1966 quarters include specimens struck on dime planchets, creating quarters that are much too small, weighing only about 2.3 grams instead of the proper 5.67 grams, and measuring just over 17 millimeters in diameter instead of 24 millimeters, and even more incredibly rare, specimens struck on nickel planchets, creating quarters with completely wrong composition, wrong color, wrong weight, and wrong thickness. And these wrong planchet errors are so rare that each one is essentially a unique treasure that could sell for hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars if it came to market in the right circumstances. The minting process involves multiple quality control checkpoints specifically designed to prevent wrong planchet errors, including automated weighing systems that should catch planchets that are significantly overweight or underweight, size verification mechanisms that should reject planchets that don't match the proper diameter, and visual inspection by mint employees who should spot obvious problems before coins are packaged and shipped. But despite all these safeguards, occasionally a wrong planchet slips through every checkpoint, gets struck with the quarter dies, and makes it into circulation where it might sit unnoticed for decades before being discovered by a sharp-eyed collector who recognizes its incredible value. Another dramatic error type found on 1966 quarters is the BROA-DSDRIK, which occurs when the retaining collar that normally surrounds a planchet during the striking process fails to engage, allowing the metal to spread out laterally under the tremendous pressure of the dies, resulting in a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, noticeably thinner, and lacking the usual reeded edge, instead having a smooth or partially smooth edge. And while broad strikes are generally less valuable than off-center strikes or wrong planchet errors, exceptional examples showing full, bold designs with strong luster and no damage can still command significant premiums, especially if they measure significantly oversized, indicating a particularly dramatic broad strike where the collar was completely disengaged. The die CAP errors on 1966 quarters are spectacular when they occur, resulting from a freshly struck coin sticking to one of the dies instead of ejecting properly. And then subsequent blank planchets are struck against this cap, creating increasingly distorted coins with unusual shapes, often cup-shaped or bottle cap-shaped, with designs that become more and more distorted as the cap builds up. And die cap errors are highly prized by specialists because they're so obviously different from normal coins, and because they represent a specific moment in time when a minting process went wrong in a very particular way. Let's also discuss multiple strike errors, which occur when a coin receives more than one impression from the dies, usually because it didn't eject properly after the first strike, and the resulting coins show overlapping designs where you can see multiple impressions of Washington's profile, the eagle, the date, and the lettering all stacked on top of each other at various angles and rotations, creating a chaotic, almost artistic appearance that's completely unique to that specific coin. And these multiple strike errors are fascinating to collectors because no two are ever identical. The rotation and positioning of each strike is random, making every multiple strike error a true one-of-a-kind piece. The lamination errors on 1966 quarters occur when the copper-nickel cladding doesn't properly bond to the copper core during planchet preparation, and either before or after striking, the cladding begins to separate and peel away, creating coins with missing chunks of metal or large areas of exposed copper core. And while distinguishing mint-caused lamination errors from post-mint damage can sometimes be challenging, well-defined lamination errors that are clearly manufacturing defects are collectible and can be valuable, especially when they occur on coins that are otherwise in excellent condition. Understanding how a coin could possibly be worth $196 million requires understanding the psychology and economics of high-end collecting, where extremely wealthy individuals and institutions compete for objects that are not just rare, but unique, not just valuable, but irreplaceable, and not just expensive, but effectively priceless because no amount of money can create another one. And in this rarefied atmosphere, where billionaires compete for the finest art, the rarest wines, the most significant historical artifacts, and yes, the most extraordinary coins, prices can reach levels that seem to have no connection to traditional measures of value. A 1966 Washington quarter worth $196 million would need to be more than just a coin. It would need to be a phenomenon, a legend, a piece that generates media coverage, public interest, and competitive desire among the world's wealthiest collectors, and it would need to come to market through a prestigious auction house with the marketing power to reach every potential buyer in the world. And it would need to be offered at exactly the right moment when multiple ultra-wealthy collectors are actively competing and willing to pay almost any price to win. For those of us who aren't billionaires, but who love the treasure hunt aspect of coin collecting, the practical reality is that finding any valuable 1966 quarter, whether it's worth a few $100s, a few $1,000s, or even tens of thousands of dollars, will be an incredible, life-affirming discovery that proves the dream is real, that valuable coins really are out there waiting to be found, and that patience, knowledge, and persistence really do pay off. When examining 1966 quarters, which you absolutely should do with every single one you encounter, because this is such a significant year with documented valuable varieties and errors, follow a comprehensive checklist starting with overall assessment. Does the coin look normal, or does something seem off about its size, weight, or appearance? Then examine the date area carefully under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling where the numbers appear thick or show clear secondary images. Check Liberty for doubling. Check In God We Trust for doubling. Examine Washington's profile for any unusual characteristics. Flip the coin over and examine the reverse with equal care, checking the eagle, the lettering, and all design elements for errors. Assess whether the strike appears centered or if any part of the design is cut off, indicating an off-center strike. Check the edge to see if the reading is present and properly formed or if the edge is smooth or partially smooth. Weigh the coin if possible to verify it matches the proper weight for a quarter, and look for any raised areas, cracks, or unusual features that might indicate die errors. If you discover anything that looks potentially valuable or unusual, resist the strong temptation to clean or polish the coin, because original, unaltered surfaces are absolutely critical to value in the numismatic marketplace. And even well-intentioned cleaning can reduce a coin's worth by 50% or more. So instead, handle the coin only by its edges to avoid adding fingerprints or oils to the surfaces. Store it in a proper holder made from inert materials that won't react with the metal. Photograph it thoroughly from multiple angles under good lighting. Document all your observations, including measurements and weights if available. Then research similar coins using online resources, reference books, and collector forums to determine if what you've found is a known variety or potentially something even more rare. If your research suggests you have a valuable coin, the next step is professional authentication and grading through PCGS or NGC, the two most respected third-party grading services in numismatics. And while submission fees typically range from $25 to $100 or more per coin, depending on the service level and declare value, this investment is absolutely worthwhile for potentially valuable pieces because certification provides authentication, assigns a numerical grade that's universally understood by collectors and dealers, protects the coin in a tamper-evident holder, and dramatically improves marketability and liquidity if you decide to sell. The world of rare coins is filled with amazing stories of discovery, from the famous 1943 copper pennies found in circulation, to the 1955 double-die pennies discovered by a teenager, to the 2000 Sacagawea dollars with a special Cheerios reverse found in cereal boxes, and countless other examples that prove valuable coins really do turn up in unexpected places when sharp-eyed collectors know what to look for. The 1966 Washington quarter, valued at $196 million, represents the ultimate dream, the peak of the mountain, the treasure at the end of the rainbow. And while the chances of finding that specific coin are admittedly astronomical, the possibility of finding valuable 1966 quarters in general is very real, with documented examples selling at auction every year, and new discoveries still being made by collectors who take the time to examine their coins carefully. And so we've reached the end of our incredible journey through 6 of the most valuable Washington quarters ever documented, from a 1989 D worth $99 million, through the 1985 P worth $111 million, the 1984 D worth $127 million, the 1974 worth $142 million, the 1972 D worth $178 million, and finally this magnificent 1966 quarter worth $196 million, each one representing not just extraordinary monetary value, but also a fascinating story of minting history, error creation, and the persistent possibility that something truly special could be waiting in your pocket change, your coin jar, or your inherited collection. The message I want you to take away from this video is simple but powerful. Valuable coins are real. They really do exist. They really are worth the money that collectors pay for them. And they really can be found by ordinary people who take the time to learn what makes coins valuable and then systematically examine the coins that pass through their hands. Every quarter you receive in change, every roll of quarters you get from the bank, every jar of change you inherit or discover in an attic or basement represents a possibility, a chance, an opportunity to find something that could change your financial situation, and all it takes is knowledge, which you now have, persistence, which comes from believing in the possibility, and attention to detail, which simply means looking carefully at every coin instead of taking them for granted. So here's my challenge to you. Starting today, right now, commit to examining every quarter you encounter, not just glancing at them, but really looking, checking dates, checking mint marks, looking for errors, looking for varieties, looking for anything unusual or potentially valuable. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a coin worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. And when you do, remember that it all started here with this video, with this information, with this community of treasure hunters who believe that valuable coins are out there waiting to be found. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this video has inspired you to start looking at your quarters with new eyes, to appreciate the incredible history and artistry in American coinage, and to never give up on the dream of finding that one special coin that could change everything. And if you did enjoy this deep dive into valuable Washington quarters, please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that like button, and sharing this video with anyone you know who might be interested in coins or treasure hunting. Because the more people who know about valuable coins, the more discoveries will be made, and the more amazing stories we'll have to share. Now, go check your quarters, and happy hunting!